Ever stop and think about what's actually inside your phone, your laptop, making them faster, smarter every year?
It's quite something.
Yeah, it's not magic, right? Silicon.
Yeah.
These incredibly complex chips. And today, well, we're diving into a prediction that really highlights the scale of all this.
hmm
Analysts are talking about Apple possibly placing just a mind-boggling order. We're talking maybe $60 billion worth of advanced chips
60 billion.
from a
Wow.
company you might not know by name, but they are absolutely critical, TSMC.
Yeah, TSMC, the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. And that number, 60 billion, it's huge. It's not just a big order. It signals something really significant happening between Apple and TSMC.
Definitely.
And for you, using these gadgets every day, understanding this kind of potential investment, it really gives you a glimpse behind the curtain, doesn't it? It shows you where the tech is heading.
Absolutely. And to put that $60 billion in context,
Yeah.
that could translate to $1 trillion new Taiwan dollars in revenue for TSMC, just from Apple, in 1 year.
$1 trillion NT dollars.
Yeah. Now, compare that TSMC's total revenue in 2024, just last year, was around $90 billion US. So Apple's orders could become this enormous slice of their business.
A huge slice. I mean, analysts figured Apple's chip buys in 2024 were already pretty big, maybe around NT $624 billion.
Right.
So if they actually hit that trillion NT dollar mark in 2025, well, that's a massive jump. We could be looking at, somewhere between 28% and maybe even 60% growth.
60%, that's staggering. Even the middle estimate, around 44% growth year on year, that's still huge.
It really is. And you have to think that kind of growth, it's probably not just about selling, more of the same iPhones.
Good point.
It strongly suggests Apple might be gearing up for something bigger, maybe new products entirely, or a really fundamental leap in their existing devices, something requiring tons of the absolute latest silicon.
So what makes the difference between that 28% and that potential 60% jump?
Well, the analysts point out that hitting that high end really depends on a couple of key things. First, how smoothly TSMC can get production rolling at their new plants, particularly the ones in Arizona.
The U.S. expansion, okay.
Exactly. And second, and this is crucial, it hinges on the successful ramp-up of their next-generation manufacturing process, the 2-nanometer node.
Okay, so let's dig into that. What's actually driving this? Why might Apple need so many more chips, especially these advanced ones?
Well, one big factor seems to be that TSMC chips are just, showing up in more and more of Apple stuff. It's not just the main iPhone processor anymore.
Right. It's Macs, iPads, watches.
Exactly. Their tech is spreading across the whole Apple ecosystem. But beyond just volume, it's also about the kind of tech. TSMC is really at the bleeding edge of manufacturing. They have the most advanced tools, the best techniques for building these incredibly tiny, complex circuits.
And Apple always wants the best, right?
Pretty much. They want access to that cutting-edge capability.
And we can actually see that reflected in TSMC's own numbers, can't we?
Oh, absolutely. You look at their recent financials. In the first quarter of 2025, chips made using their 3-nanometer tech, that accounted for 22% of their total revenue.
22%.
Yeah, and that's up hugely from just 9% in the same quarter the year before.
Wow.
And at the same time, you see revenue from their older processes, like 5-nanometer and 7-nanometer, it's dipping.
So a clear shift towards the newer tech.
Precisely. It makes total sense. Apple historically jumps on TSMC's latest, most powerful stuff almost immediately, especially for those critical iPhone chips.
Okay, speaking of the latest and greatest, let's talk about this 2-nanometer technology. You mentioned it's key. Analysts are even suggesting Apple's orders for just these 2-nanometer chips could hit that trillion new Taiwan dollar figure. That's roughly, what, 33 billion US dollars?
Yeah, around $33 billion. Just for the 2-nanometer orders, potentially. It's kind of mind-bending.
So what makes 2-nanometer so special? What's the leap?
Okay, think of it like building with even tinier Lego bricks than before. The nanometer number basically refers to how small the components on the chip are. Smaller components mean you can pack more of them, more transistors into the same space. More transistors generally means more power, more efficiency.
Got it. More bang for your buck, silicon-wise.
Exactly. And 2-nanometer is TSMC's most advanced way of doing this right now. It uses a different kind of transistor structure, something called nanosheet transistors.
Nanosheet. That's different from what they used before.
Yeah, it's a step up from the previous design, which was called FinFET. It's just a more sophisticated way to build those tiny electrical switches on the chip. The end result, hopefully for you, is better performance, maybe longer battery life, without making the phone itself bigger.
And you mentioned Arizona earlier. This 2 nanometer production, that's where the U.S. plants become really important, isn't it?
Precisely. Those Arizona fabs are expected to be absolutely critical for making these 2 nanometer chips, especially for Apple.
So Apple's relying on U.S. production for its most advanced chips.
It seems that way. I mean, Tim Cook himself has said publicly that Apple is lined up to be TSMC Arizona's biggest customer.
Wow.
So yeah, it really deepens that partnership. And, it also has bigger implications for where chips get made globally, supply chain security, all that stuff.
Sure, sure. Now, TSMC sounds incredibly dominant here, but they're not completely alone in this race for the tiniest, fastest chips, are they?
Oh, definitely not. No, TSMC is the leader right now in contract manufacturing, making chips designed by others, like Apple. But the competition is really, really heating up.
Like who?
Well, Intel is making a big push. Under their relatively new CEO, Lip Bretan, they've set this really ambitious goal to start production using their own advanced process called 18A sometime in 2025.
18A. So that's Intel's answer to TSMC's 2 nanometer.
Sort of, yeah. It's their comparable generation of technology. And it's a clear signal that Intel wants back in the game in a big way. They want to grab a significant piece of that contract manufacturing market that TSMC currently dominates.
Okay, so Intel's trying to muscle back in. Any other major players we should be watching?
Absolutely. Samsung, they're another huge player. And they're also pushing very hard on their own 2 nanometer technology development.
Right. So it's really becoming a three-horse race at the absolute cutting edge. TSMC, Intel, Samsung.
That's pretty much it. And look, that kind of competition, it's usually a good thing.
How so?
Well, it puts pressure on everyone involved. They have to innovate faster, push the boundaries, develop more efficient tech, and maybe, just maybe, it could eventually lead to better costs down the line.
Okay, so let's pull this all together. For you listening, using your iPhone, your Mac every day, what does this potential giant chip order, this tech race, what does it actually mean for the devices you'll be holding in a year or two?
Well, fundamentally, these huge orders and these tiny nanometer numbers, they're the building blocks for whatever Apple does next.
So faster phones, longer battery life.
That's the baseline expectation, yeah. More powerful processors, definitely. Chips that sip power so your battery lasts longer. But it also unlocks potential for entirely new stuff.
Like what?
Think about smoother, more realistic augmented reality. Or much more sophisticated AI running right there on your device, not needing the cloud as much. And probably things we haven't even really thought of yet. These advanced chips just open up new possibilities.
And the fact that you've got TSMC, Intel, Samsung all battling it out, that could speed things up even more.
It certainly could. That competition drives innovation, like we said. And yeah, maybe eventually some cost benefits trickle down, which, we'd all appreciate.
Sure enough.
But the big takeaway is that Apple, placing such potentially massive bets on TSMC's most advanced tech, like 2 nanometer, it really underscores how absolutely vital these semiconductor breakthroughs are for their whole future strategy. They need this cutting-edge silicon to build what comes next.
Okay, so quick recap then. We've got analysts predicting this potentially enormous $60 billion chip order from Apple to TSMC for 2025.
Right, potentially hitting $1 trillion.
Driven by TSMC being in more Apple products.
Yeah.
And crucially, their super advanced manufacturing tech, especially this upcoming 2 nanometer process.
Mm-hmm.
And while TSMC leads, Intel and Samsung are right there pushing hard, creating this intense competition at the forefront of chip making.
Exactly. And what it means for you is likely even more powerful, more efficient devices in the future, fueled by this incredible progress. It's a fascinating look at the engine under the hood of our digital lives.
So here's something to think about as we wrap up. With chip technology advancing this relentlessly and this competition heating up between giants like TSMC, Intel, Samsung, how is this going to shape the kind of things our devices can do? Beyond just being faster or having better graphics, what completely new experiences, what innovations might these super advanced chips actually enable in the next few years? What's the next big thing they'll unlock?